Hello and welcome. In this video, we will learn two variations of for loop. Okay, first is for off and second one is for in. All right. Now, first let me create an object. Okay. Name I'll give as Ravi. Age I'll give it as 23. Height I will mention it as 5.3. Okay, 5.3. Now this is an object, so you know to create this, correct? So when I run it, I get the output of an object. Now first let me teach you about for in loop. Okay, for in loop. Now this for in loop can be used to iterate over the keys of an object. Now object has key value pairs, correct? So you know that. So on the left of the colon we have key and on the right we have value. So key, value, key, value. Alright. And to get keys one by one as output, we can use for in loop. Alright. So let me write the syntax of that. So for in loop starts with keyword for and in bracket we use key. Okay. So this need not be key. I'll come to this. Key and in, okay, in person one, okay, name of the object. All right, and then here comes the body of the loop. Here comes the body of the loop. So this is the syntax of for in loop. For and in the parenthesis key to store the key values for every iteration in person, so object. All right. Now here key, let me name it as x. It can be anything, x. Okay, in person one, name of the object. Now this is fine. Body, so let me say console.log and x. Okay, x. So let me run it once and show you what I get. So here you can see I have got the keys as the output or the result. Alright. So the key names as result here. Key names as result here. Alright. So what happens is every time in each iteration the value of key gets stored in x, and in the next line that is what gets logged to the console or gets printed. So in the first iteration the key name gets stored in x and it gets printed, and in the next iteration key age gets stored in x and that is what gets printed, and in the third iteration key height gets stored in x and that is what gets printed. Okay. Now a good practice is to say const x, right? So we have not declared x anywhere outside, so you need to say const x. Okay, const x. So let me run it to get name, age and height. So this is how for in loop works. Alright. Now there are plenty of uses of for in loop which are pretty advanced, so let me not get into that. Let me move next to the next variation of for loop, which is for off loop. Okay, for off loop. So let me delete this. Okay. Now I'm going to create an array. Okay, person 1, let it be person 1, and I'm writing something. So let me write random values 32, 43, and let it be Ravi and 22.2. Okay, so here I have created an array. Alright, now I can iterate over the elements of this array using for of loop. Okay, using for of loop. So let me do that now. So the syntax of for of loop is for and in parenthesis elements, okay, elements, or the variable in which we'll be storing elements in every iteration of and the name of the array person1, okay, and in this the body of the for of loop. All right, for of loop. So here elements, okay, elements. So let me say x, okay, x of person1, and in the body let me say console dot log x. All right, so now let me run this to get each element of this array as output. So what happens is, every time in every iteration the value of arrays gets stored in x and gets printed. So in first iteration 56 gets stored in x and gets printed. Next iteration 32 gets stored in x and gets printed. Next 43 gets printed. Next iteration Ravi gets printed. Next iteration, or the final iteration, 22.2 gets printed or logged to the console. Alright, and as I mentioned, it is better to have const or let, okay, and then the name of the element or name of the variable in which we will be storing the element. Okay, so I'll run it to get the same result. Alright, now let us check what happens if I give in here. So in, I've used in instead of, rest everything remains same. So when I run it, I get the index numbers, okay, 0, 1, 2, 3 and 4. So instead of getting the elements, I'm getting index numbers, alright, which is not useful for us. Alright, so I'll say off and run it to get the elements as result. Alright, now let us put to use this for of loop. Let us say we have an array of name of boys. Okay, I'll say Ravi, I'll say Mohan, I'll say Anil. Okay, so 3 is enough for now. So I have an array with 3 names of boys. Alright, so what I want to do is, I want to print the names of these boys, but I want to have Mr. printed before them. Okay, so let us say that some of the boys have entered their names, but I want to print it out as Mr. Ravi, Mr. Mohan, Mr. Anil. Okay, so let us do that. So what I'll do is, I'll say for, okay, for and f name. Okay, I'll say f name of boys, okay, boys, and here I'll say initials is equal to, and I'll say Mr. Okay, Mr. plus what is it, f name. Okay, f name. Okay, and then I'll log to the console initial. Alright, so let us run it and see what we get. So we get Mr. Ravi, Mr. Mohan and Mr. Anil. So now let us analyze what is happening here. So f name is the name that I am giving for a variable which stores the element in every iteration. So in first iteration what happens is, Ravi gets stored in f name, and then here in this step To this f name, Ravi, Mr. gets added. So you know about string concatenation. So Mr. gets added and that Mr. gets stored in initials. Okay. And in the next line, I'm logging to the console initials. So in the first iteration, I get this output. Okay. And in the second iteration, Mohan will be in f name, to which Mr. will be added in this step and stored in initials. And in the third step, initials gets printed, which is Mr. Mohan. And in the same way, in the third iteration, we get Mr. Anil as output. Okay, Mr. Anil as output. Now, this is one example of use of off. Okay. Now, instead of doing this, you can also simply do this. Okay. You can say console.log and in bracket, I'll use backtick and I'll say Mr. and I'll use dollar symbol and this and I'll say f name and this. Okay. So I'm using template literal. Alright. So now when I run it, I get the same result. Okay. So you know how to use this, correct? You know how to use this. Alright. Yeah. Now, this is how we use for off loop to iterate over elements of an array. Now, we can also iterate over a string. Okay. So let us do that now. So I'll say const f name is equal to, let me say Mohan. Alright, Mohan. Now there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 characters in this word or name Mohan. Now what I want to do is I want to print each character individually. So I want to print M, then O, then H, then A and then N. Alright. And that can be done using for off loop. Alright. So here I'll say for and in the bracket I'll say, okay, let it be let. Okay. Let, I'll say X, okay, of F name. Alright. I'll say let X of first name and in the brackets I'll say console.log and X. Alright. So now when I run it, I get MOHAN individually. Alright. So Mohan is the string here and these 5 are the characters, and each time one character gets stored in X and that gets printed out. Alright. You can do various sorts of things before logging to the console, which is left to you. You can practice it. But if you want to log it directly, then you can do it like this. Okay. So in the first iteration, M gets stored and M gets printed. In the second iteration, O gets stored and O gets logged to the console. I keep saying print, so it is logging to the console. You can use any. In the third iteration, H, fourth, A and fifth iteration, N gets stored in X and gets printed. Alright. So like this, you can iterate over a string using for off loop. Okay. So that's it for this video. Go ahead and practice the things that we have learnt in this video. I'll see you in the next video. Till then, take care and thank you for watching.